Welcome to Millionaire Unfiltered, where we dive deep into the raw realities of escaping the matrix, how money works, entrepreneurship, the 5 pillars of success, and the unfiltered journey to millionaire status. I'm Hannah Thorson, your host, and I thank you for taking part in this unapologetic exploration of financial wisdom, entrepreneurship, and the Gen Z perspective on building authentic wealth. In each episode, we're bringing you real talk, real stories, and real strategies to help you unlock your Gen Z millionaire mindset. Being a millionaire is more than just about having millions. It's a mindset and a lifestyle. We don't mess around here, so if you get offended, well, looks like there's some things you need to work on. This is the Millionaire Unfiltered podcast, where purpose meets millions. Welcome back. It's good to see you. Remember the 5 pillars of success I talked about in the last episode? No? Well, go back and check, and then come back here, because today's episode is going to be mainly focused on the finance pillar, with a little bit of connection and purpose thrown in there as well. I want you to be making money and preserving your wealth as soon as possible. So the story we're bringing on today is very deep and very meaningful. Just take the time to notice how not only is finance important, but how the different pillars kind of tie together to create a very cohesive foundation in order to, chase what you really want to. So, you know how I said I'm not a millionaire yet, but that I'm surrounding myself around other millionaires and billionaires that have obviously been where I want to be. I figured what wouldn't be a better way to kind of kickstart this podcast off than by introducing you to my personal mentor, Jake Huynh. I think that's how you say his last name. My apologies if it's not. He's an incredible man who went from rags to riches. He came with an immigrant family and was raised on Section 8, and now he's making multiple six figures or more, and he's just an incredible guy, and he's been a wealth of knowledge for me in my life. So I think Jake's success story is going to be really inspiring for you, just because he pretty much went from rags to riches, from Section 8 to being able to retire his parents in his late 20s. Without any further ado, Jake, I don't want to take up any more of your time, just because you have a lot of wisdom to share, and we're excited to hear. So what's your story, man? Seriously, what's your story? And please remember that, this podcast, it's called Millionaire Unfiltered. So you can say anything and everything. There's nothing that's going to be, taken to offense here. There's no holds barred. So,
Well, I'll tell you how it all started for me. My parents were immigrants here to the U.S. They came from Vietnam when the communists kind of like raided their houses and all that stuff. I actually almost ended up in Canada, but decided U.S. was the right one because they picked my first generation uncle first. He ended up coming here, working $2 an hour painting houses and was able to sponsor everyone else. And that was kind of where it all started. And I realized that now that I'm far older. And it's crazy because once my parents got here, they didn't speak the native tongue. They worked average jobs. We actually grew up off of all a lot of government assistant, Section 8, WIC, food stamps, the whole nine. And I didn't realize that until I was in my teenage years, because everyone else around me grew up off a lot of that stuff. After high school, I wanted to pursue accounting because it was something stable, something that my house lacked, at the time. But I soon realized that I wanted more out of life. You ever feel, Hannah, have you ever feel like when you're a kid, you had big aspirations and dreams, and
100%.
then as you get older, for some reason, life just seems to chip away at it,
Yeah, yeah.
right? So thank God when I was 18 years old, someone had asked me, like, what do you want to do later in life? Like, seriously, like, where do you see yourself 10 years from now? And that prompted me to interview myself 10 years from now, had I pursued accounting. And I learned that it wasn't the life that I really, really wanted. And thankfully, I was able to have enough courage to pursue more. I started my first business using my financial aid money, which I don't recommend now, but I got really lucky, extremely lucky. and it did really well for me. And then I was able to pivot into my current career, which is in uh, financial services and in this business. And this business has completely changed my life, not because of like, that it's just because it's in the money business, but more so the education, right? And the people and the person I've become as I've ventured into this space. So that's just a little about me.
Yeah, yeah. So I love that. And that's one thing I really want people to understand on this podcast is that, it's the adversity that we go through um that yeah, no, it's I don't know, just recently I've realized the importance of adversity and how it's like if you're not facing adversity, like what good are you doing? The bigger the problem, the more money there is. That's kind of why, this is a good industry to be in. But I mean, that being said, so you said you run an agency. What exactly do you do?
So as a financial advisor, we pretty much help educate families on how money works. So actually, I'm wearing a How Money Works T-shirt right now, if you
Oh?
want to see,
Oh, heck
right?
yeah.
So
Okay.
how basically a lot of people don't really understand the value of the education, right? And I grew up in a family that, always kept me fed, always had a roof over my head, but outside of that, that was it.
Mm,
There was no extra money, no extra resources, no lack of opportunity because, when you're surrounded by people that don't have much, we talk about the same things. All we focus on is struggles,
right.
right? And we always talk about struggles. We even so I'm sure my parents talked about solutions, but the problem was they never had a plan to take, and even if they did, they didn't take action on it. Like,
Mm,
so a part of the culture that we're trying to really develop here, right? And hopefully we can spread this nationwide is to be more financially literate, have an actual plan so you can back engineer it, and then carry out that plan. You got to trust yourself, you got to trust the plan, and you got to trust the process, right? Because right, most people, because they don't have a compelling future, that's why they want to live in the moment. But
mm,
the real problem is sometimes people don't even notice it, but the moment kind of sucks.
yeah.
Like, you know what I'm saying? In comparison to who? If you're living the moment with other people at a low level, like you'll be living like that for the rest of your life. Now, if you compare yourself, and a lot of people, yeah, you don't want to compare yourself to someone else, right? But why don't you compare yourself to your max potential,
Yeah.
right? And if you think about it, like I think about it all the time. I'm nowhere near where I want to be. You know what I mean? I want to have uh like this company that I'm building from the ground up, right, in every state. We're in several states, but we're not in every state yet, right?
True.
So I want to have more of that influence until we get there. Like my moment needs to grow. I need to compare that to someone that has done it and set my ego aside and go talk to them and be like, hey, how did you do it? And let's find ways to collapse that time frame. Obviously in an ethical way, doing things by the books, because the right way is the fastest way to get there.
Absolutely. So, who exactly do you work for, and why did you choose them out of all the different other firms that you could have chosen?
That's a funny story. So this is how it all happened down for me. So I was actually approached in my early 20s when I was starting my business. Right? So I was a teenager at the time, and I was still going to college, pursuing accounting because at that time I believed in having like a backup plan, right? Because I was so young, I was so new, I was extremely naive, probably more naive today than I was back then, honestly. But I was approached by an advisor, right, that was just starting his career
Mm,
at the time, right? And I just told them like, hey, look, listen, man, like I know you're starting off your career and you want to expand your agency and you want to look for other people to help you grow it. But at that time it just wasn't right for me. Because I was starting my own business at the time. My business was maybe a year in and
mm,
I started seeing profits. So I was really excited. And I was really excited on scaling that business, which, happened. And I believe things happen for a reason. Had I gone start started as advisor then, I might not be an advisor today. Just
Mm.
because I was young and under that leadership, not saying that it was bad, it just like they were growing too, you know?
Yeah.
And at that time they were, I would say, more immature in a sense that they weren't coachable either.
Mm.
So they had to learn all, through it all. And looking back now, I would have been a guinea pig, right? So I'm thankful I'm not, but I did get approached again by the same advisor years later.
Mm.
Well, I wasn't approached. I actually approached them.
Okay. Okay.
So I actually approached them. And the reason I approached them was because um I had made the money, but because I didn't go through his program in the beginning, I didn't understand how to maximize my money.
Mm.
Does that make sense? I was a toxic consumer. And at that point, I reached out not to join the agency or anything like that, but to for the client side. I want to uh become a client. I want to learn how to invest my money. And he had an incredible track record of success. Incredible. Uh, he came from a fairly well-off family, but never used a dime from the
Mm.
family. I saw the man work 3 jobs while building his agency. So that commanded a lot of respect from me. Like,
Yeah.
you know how like you feel like nobody's watching, but I guarantee you somebody's watching. Good or bad, good or for bad, right? For good or for bad, somebody's watching you. And I was watching from a distance. And sometimes not even knowingly. I was just like, "Oh, wow, like that's freaking awesome. Good for him." Like seriously, you know what I mean?
Mm.
I never felt like I was missing out or anything, but like I just knew that that was within reach. So I reached out, got really humbled about how money works, right? That's why we have it on our shirts now, how money
Yeah.
works. And since then, I started off as a client, and then he asked me to join his agency again. Having the courage to do so completely changed my life because a lot of people wouldn't, knowing that I had already said no years ago,
Mm.
right? And the what really got me wasn't because I want to make extra money, wasn't because all that stuff. Obviously having extra money doesn't matter how much is always going to be good. At least I grew up feeling that way.
Mm.
You know what I mean? Um, but he asked me, Jake, like passion has nothing to do with this, okay? It's not one of those things, right? I know you have a passion for living, and I know you have a passion providing for your family, and your future family. Like, is that right? I was like, absolutely, absolutely. At that point, I was already in my mid 20s, not not in my early 20s where I would just go to Vegas every like couple months and like eat Korean barbecue every day type of thing, go to the bar, right? And he asked me this question that changed everything. He's like, who do you trust more to handle your money more than yourself? He's like, I'll start it for you, I'll educate you, but at one point you're gonna have to handle your own money because it's your hard-earned money and your family's money. Wouldn't you agree?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's why in my agency I tell people all the time that are part of it, like you guys have the highest level of qualification and authority because you guys are good people.
Mm.
Not because you've been here for 20 years, not because of a fancy degree, right? Because your integrity. And that stuck with me. You know what I mean? I'm like, man, I'm not gonna park like money with somebody that I barely know just because I know I should.
Mm.
So I really should learn this. If anything, maybe just in the beginning to get the ball rolling, but I should eventually pick it up myself,
Right.
right? And that's
And
that's how I started.
and I guess, some people they'll join our agency, and then, they'll find other firms that, might have a higher contract percentage. What would you say to those that kind of see those other opportunities, while they're but they still want to change the world in some way, but it's not a short-term thing.
I mean, first, there's enough market in the entire US for you to serve. There's no shortage of people that need to save money and be educated about money. That's number one, right? So it's free game for everybody. In regards to higher contract, the way business works is like this, right? Let's say out of like, the max percentage, the higher the contract that someone gets, the less agency profits they'll receive, if that makes sense. Like
Mm-hmm.
let's say let's use real estate. If someone's in real estate, right? and let's say I'm a broker there, right? And this works the same as my industry. Um, but let's say somebody is one of my top selling agents. He or she is selling a ton of houses,
Mm-hmm.
right? So to every time he sells a house, I'll get a cut because this is my brokerage. I will always get a cut. It could be 30%, 40%, 20%,
Right.
however. But obviously, as he continues to grow, right? Grow, he or she, right? They might want to create their own agency
True.
and create their own brokerage because they got the skill set, they built the book of business, they built the relationship, they worked extremely hard for it, and they deserve it. Absolutely, they deserve it,
Yeah.
right? My only way to keep them in my agency is be like, hey, like let's say you're my agent. Hey Hannah, why don't I give you a higher contract, higher contract, higher contract? So what happens to my business? My spread gets thin.
Mm.
And I've learned that in this business, right, when I onboard people, yeah, sure, for some cases, yeah, to make an additional income, to supplement more income so they can fuel their dreams and goals, short term, midterm, long term. But in reality, my favorite people that are in my agency are those that want financial freedom. They want to be the main characters in their own life, right? So I always tell them, look, you might have a lower contract right now, but there's a reason why. Because when you become a broker, your spread will be large.
I like it.
But if you're gonna join an agency where the spread is thin, but you get a higher contract, what are you really? You're just a salesperson.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you this: if you're gonna struggle selling here, I guarantee you'll struggle selling there.
Mm-hmm.
There's no difference. There is no difference in the whole U.S. There's how many financial products,
Thousands.
right? Yeah. It's like if you start with this broker and you start with that broker in terms of selling cars or houses, you guys are still selling cars and houses,
Mm-hmm.
right? But if I can equip you with the best like training program, integrity, like attached to every part of it, there's no reason why you wouldn't win here.
Perfect. I love it. Oh, that's awesome. All right. Well, I think you might like this next one. What do you value most in a business relationship and just friendships in general?
Man, that's a good question. I value friends a lot because being in business is not always easy. It really isn't. So having that that cornerstone of your life being really full, I feel like is very important. The hard part is finding the right people.
True.
Finding the right people, not settling is important. Because sometimes you might find some good friends, but they're not great friends,
Mm.
right? And in reality, like you're hurting them and yourself. Because you might not because they're just your good friends, like you're very likely you're reciprocating that to them.
Mm.
So you're not being a great friend to them either because they're not being a great friend to you. So you guys are both hurting each other, right? Like the greatest enemy of excellence is good,
Mm.
right? So I've been lucky to have found that first. Like to be honest with you, before the money, before all that stuff, I've always had great friends around me. And I think that stems from integrity. So I look for integrity, um good energy. Sounds so silly and weird, but
No.
it's energy. The moment you talk to them, you walk in the room with them, you just feel it.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like, you and me, we've been in the same room before. Like,
100%.
like we shared a hotel room before. You've
Yeah.
been next to me before, right? So you know how it is, right? And consistency. Like just understanding, like seeing their consistent values, right? And those that are gonna tell they genuinely want you to grow. Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that's why I love agency businesses. Like our business is designed so you can grow something that'll be there for you for life. And this is a big thing for me. I was talking to my girlfriend about this and we have our own best friends and these are the best friends I'm talking about like my best friends that's been with me since I was like in middle school and I'm 31 today and I'm like, man, yeah, they're my best friends, but eventually they're gonna have their own lives. I mean, they already have their own lives, but like they're getting married, they have children, you know what I'm saying? and they're building their own life. They're the main characters in their own life, right?
Mm-hmm.
And if they're not in the company that I'm building that's gonna change the world, then very likely they're not gonna be around me that often, like as often as I'd like. And we are not gonna grow together. We might grow, like hopefully, like grow, but we might grow apart in
True.
regards to time. But I love the agency business that we're a part of because I get to onboard people, watch them grow, nurture them, give them my expertise and my knowledge, my experience, and we'll grow together forever. They'll watch my kids grow up, I'll watch their kids grow up. But because we have a vested interest and the same interest to build a company, the same company, then we're going to be in each other's eyes forever. You know what I mean? So I encourage people to do that. Work together, find people that has the same energy as you, same goals, and don't settle for friends, don't settle for partners, don't settle for health, don't settle for anything.
I like it. I agree. I agree. You're speaking facts, Jake.
You're fun to
uh,
talk to.
thank you. Thank you. Um, why is it so important to know how money works?
Why is it important to know how money works?
Yeah,
Would you like to have more money or less money, Hannah?
more.
You go. Let's keep it simple.
Yeah,
You just
no.
have to ask yourself that. Like money is like not everything, because like I would say health and relationships are very important, right? And time. But if you're not satisfied with where you are, and this is the part where you have to be very brutally honest with yourself. And if, let's say, you're married or you have like dependents, you gotta take responsibility, own that responsibility, be like, are they satisfied with how much I'm providing for them,
Yeah.
right? Because when you commit to a partner, you're committing like to each other's goals,
Mm-hmm.
right? The last thing you want to do is give them fool's gold, right? So I think if you ask yourself honestly, like, hey, am I happy with where I am today financially? And if you are, then you very likely you understand, like, a good amount of how money works. But if you aren't, and let's say your house or your rent is going up X amount of percentage, and the cost of food is going up by X amount of percentage, but your income isn't going up by X amount of percentage, then you're gonna be in trouble.
Mm-hmm.
you know so to keep it simple, it's like, do you want more money, or do you want less, like, or are you happy where you are, or do you feel like you're falling behind? And that'll answer the question why money is important.
Yeah. It really comes from within. People,
It's super simple.
yeah.
We don't have to make this super complicated.
So, I mean, with that being said, what would you tell a young individual, or even if they're not young, but this podcast is catered more towards Gen Z. But even if they're younger, and they want to make a difference in their life financially, but they don't know how or where to start, what would you tell them?
Reach out to us. I'm just kidding. Not
No.
kidding. But dream big. I think that's really important. Dream big. Like, don't forget that this is your life. There's no traffic when you're in your own lane. This is your life. Don't let anybody tell you otherwise. Protect your dream once you figure that out, right? Don't let anybody take that away from you, even your parents, even your closest friends, sometimes even yourself. I'd start there. I'd read books. As you can tell, I love books,
Yeah.
right? Read a ton of books. If you need a list of books just to begin with and you don't want to be a client of ours, that's totally fine. Reach out to us. I'll give you a strong list of books to start off with. Read books, because reading books is like interviewing your like someone that you admire.
Hmm.
Like one of those books, if I were to read one of them, my mentality going into it is like, wow, somebody has all this knowledge, right? And that's their life's work, right? And they're putting it on paper, and I get to talk to them through the words on the paper,
Hmm.
So I think that's important. Read books, like, work on yourself harder than you work on anything else, right? Have courage. You need to have courage to pursue your dreams, because just having a dream and not pursuing it feels like torture. So take massive action, right? And learn from it. If you fall, pick yourself up. That's all that matters, right? And if you do that enough, you'll win big in life. I guarantee it. You'll walk your life like you're your own main character of your life rather than being like, an extra in someone else's movie. I think that's super important to understand. And if you need to, start small. There's nothing wrong with that. Starting small, right? And lastly, park your ego at the door because no matter how big you'll get, you'll never know it all. Not even like nobody's perfect, and that's it was designed like that. So that's my advice to somebody that's starting off at any age.
Okay. Heck yeah. And I guess I got two last questions. What would you say your own personal dreams are that you'd like people to know about? And if none, that's okay. You can keep them close to your chest. But if there are any personal dreams that you want people to know about, what would they be?
My personal dreams is to take the How Money Works saga across the US. Build an agency that's going to be a household name so they understand that, you know, this is really how money works. And understanding that the culture that we're creating is a culture for dreamers that are going to turn that dream into reality. And it's tethered with a lot of integrity. I think that's really important.
Mm.
We might not be the biggest, you know, agency right now,
Humble
but
beginnings.
it'll happen,
Yeah.
and more personal dreams is just like I want my children to make their dreams come true. Like, like they don't have to work for somebody if they don't want to. If they don't want to. You know what I mean? Like they can be anybody, anything they want. It's all possible. It's all possible. And I want to give them the environment for in which they can grow and they can pass that thinking process to the next generations and generations and generations to come. So that's something that's really dear to me and important to me. And lastly, um, I don't know why, but I want to help people in third world countries because I've seen videos, where there are people that like a family of like 10 sharing a loaf of bread, like
Mm.
a potato. And here I am, I could eat whatever I want, whenever I want, and I don't finish it. So and I know that like, on days that I feel bad, like I feel lazy or whatever, like they trade places with me like instantly.
Yeah.
So I want to be able to give opportunity like that as well. So those are three things that are really dear to my heart.
Okay. I love that. Thank you for the vulnerability.
Oh, sure.
And I guess the very last thing, I kind of threw this in as like a little bonus question just because I figured you might like it. If you could read one book for the rest of your life, what would it be?
Oh, that's a good one. Ah, that's a really good one. Hannah, there's too many books that are so good.
I know.
Ah. All right, I'll throw in a couple because I really can't pick.
Okay.
Right, can you just, all right, I'll throw in a couple. Obviously the How Money Works book is phenomenal. And not because we are How Money Works, but it literally it's fun to read. A child could read it,
Yeah.
and understand it, and it'll actually change your life. Like it'll actually change your life, right? Because you don't have to be ready to receive those nuggets.
Mm-hmm.
Does that make sense? Like
Yeah.
like sometimes if I tell you a book and it helped me a lot, but I might have been ready at that time to receive what I was reading.
Right.
Whereas like, some people I could give it to somebody else and they'll read it and they'll be like, "Oh, that was a good book."
Ooh,
And that's it.
yeah.
You know what I'm saying? It was great, but it didn't like hit them like that.
Yeah.
So the How Many Works book will always hit. That's why I really like that book. Um, Three other books I would say. I really like The Alchemist.
Okay.
I've read it a lot. is by my bedside as a reminder more than anything that, like, you know what I mean? I like that book because it teaches you purpose,
Mm,
and I think that's important.
absolutely.
Like, and purpose is like is a deep conversation to go through if you like. Um, another book, another couple. Oh, I can't tell you just one or two. It's killing me right now, man. Another one that I really like is David and Goliath.
Mm.
All right, David and Goliath by Malcolm Gladwell, I want to say. Yeah, by Malcolm Gladwell. David and Goliath by Malcolm Gladwell. That book is really good because they use a lot of stories and examples,
Mm.
right? So one story may really resonate with you, another may not. But you'll get to compare, like, and analyze it yourself in your own way. So I really like that book. It helped me a lot, in terms of perspectives. Um, and two more books I'd say is Tuesday with Maury. I don't know if you've ever read that
Yes, I
book. I really
have.
like that book.
Oh my gosh,
Nothing
that's
with business is more
yeah,
about life,
yeah.
right? A life about a dying man.
Hmm.
And I thought that book was inspiring. I read it in one sitting, teared up reading it. It was so good, so freaking good, right? And if you take what you learn from there and you apply it in all areas of your life, like if your life doesn't get better, you're gonna have a serious conversation with yourself,
100%.
right? And then lastly, another book that I think is phenomenal is Think and Grow Rich. I
Mm,
think Think and Grow Rich is so powerful, but you have to be ready to receive those powerful nuggets.
absolutely. Thank you, Jake. That was awesome. So let's see. I guess that's kind of wraps things up. So, pretty much, I just kind of want to end things off with saying that there's four different stages of wealth, which are stability, strategy, security, and legacy. Um, and some of these stages you can combine them at early levels, but you shouldn't do it alone. So, to kind of wrap things up, Jake, why is it important that people sit down with us instead of trying to do everything on their own?
That question is very simple to answer too. Um, Doing it on your own may feel like the best option, right? Because obviously you trust yourself, right? But you have to look around you.
Mm-hmm.
You just have to look around you. 90+% of people don't make it anywhere near where they want to be in life by the time they die. That's just the truth. And the reason why is because they try to do it by themselves, you know?
That's sad.
So if you want to be a part of that statistic,
No
then continue
thanks.
doing it by yourself. And that's okay too, because you'll have to live with it. But if you're able to set aside your pride and ego and ask for help, right? And hopefully and luckily you'll ask from the right people. Because I'll be honest with you, being in the industry for so long, not everybody is good. So hopefully you're lucky enough to ask for the right person. You might even have to scrape your knees a bit until you find the right person. But if you do, it'll change your life forever. I guarantee it.
Sweet. Well, I think that's everything, man. This was awesome. Thanks for being here, answering all these questions. I had a feeling this was going to be a bomb ass podcast episode to start off. So, yeah, thank you so much for everything. And yeah, please work with us, guys. We're here for
Am I
you.
your first am I your first speaker?
Yeah, yeah, you are.
Oh, it's an honor and privilege. It's
Heck
an honor
yeah.
and privilege. And just so you guys know, Hannah's phenomenal. She's an incredible person. Like, there needs to be more people like her. Uh she's doing phenomenal work for everybody, and she puts others before ourselves. I could uh say that because I really know her in person.
Thank you.
Keep
Thank
it up,
you.
Hannah.
Ditto, ditto. All right. Well, I guess that's everything. Thank you, Jake.
You're welcome. It was a pleasure.